In 1995, I was unemployed. Now, I'd always been a roustabout. From things that happened to me, I had many, many jobs. You name it, I'd done it, right? I was never skilled in anything, right? I'd done all sorts of things: building work, farming, meat works, chicken factories, um, construction sites. I've worked in sewers. You name it, I'd done it, right? And I saw a job for a pest controller, and I thought, okay, this might be all right. And it was actually a trade. I thought, wow, a trade. I'm 35. I can probably get into a trade. This is amazing. I think I was 35, something like that. So I applied for the job, and then this rough and tumble guy interviewed me. He said, you've had a lot of different jobs, mate. And I thought, oh, this is the end of this. I don't look stable. And he said, oh, no, you're perfect. We want a roustabout. Someone that's had a fair bit of different building and work, can understand buildings, because a lot of this work will be to do with buildings, because it was to do with termites, so it had a lot to do with building. So anyway, now I'll tell you about this guy. He'd worked in the industry. He was one of the originals. He'd worked in the industry since the 1950s. He worked with all the banned organic chlorine chemicals like dieldrin. They're banned worldwide now. They're totally dangerous. They stay in the soil for 100 years and still there, right? And he worked with them, and he used to, what we used to do, you'd have a timber floored house, and you'd cut a trap into the floor that you could put back, right? And you'd go down that hole, I've done it thousands of times, into the subfloor of the house. You'd have to be suited up, you'd have a spray gun, a sledgehammer. Now under that floor there's all different sections, because you have dwarf walls. Now, to access the other areas, you'd actually take a sledgehammer and bash a hole through the wall, and you'd stagger them. It was a climb-in point, and you'd spray all the soil. Now, he used to do it without a mask, right? And he'd say, oh, we were tough back in those days. We'd just wrap a rag around our heads, right? And I used to joke with him and say, is that why you're stupid, And then he said, oh, we used to use DDT. Now, we know what DDT is. It's banned everywhere. And I said, what do you used to use that for? And he said, oh, we used to put it in this hand pump and pump it all through the roofs and under the floors of the house, out in the bush. And I said, oh, that's a bit deadly. And he said, oh, we didn't wear a mask for that. Of course not. Now, this guy, he smoked like a train, right? I'd seen him using arsenic trioxide to treat termites, because it was used, and it's highly, highly deadly. It's a white powder, and we used to put a red oxide in it. So when you use a little puffer, it was a little thing, you'd puff, 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 puff. And the idea was, where the termites had been making their mud tunnels, you'd break two little holes, and you'd slowly puff the dust in, and watch the draft take it up. And when it had taken in there, you'd close it up. And the idea is the termites would gradually pick it up and take it back to the queen to destroy the colony. But there's different chemicals and methods now. It's phased out. It's just too dangerous. Absolutely too dangerous. He used to use it without a mask. He used to sit there and puff it. Right? And we used to joke and say, oh, he'll never die because he's got that much poison in his body, nothing would ever attack him. Cancer wouldn't even think about it, right? I never saw this guy for years. Oh, another time we were doing a job, right? And we were at it was actually a museum that was the original jail in Adelaide in South Australia, the capital city. And there'd been 21 people hung at this jail, right? There was one female who poisoned her husband with strychnine that she got from the pharmacy and got her son to buy, and she said it was for rats, but it was for her husband. Maybe he was a rat and he needed it. But anyway, along this wall, they've got plaques of everyone that died. And the room in there was very old, and it was all National Trust, all preserved National Trust museum. And termites had been coming through the stone wall. Normally you would dig a trench along there and you'd flood it with a chemical and backfill it, right? Well, he was in there with a pick digging it up, and I went around there and I said, hey mate, you know what you're digging up? And he said, what? I said, the last lady that was hung in the state, he was digging up where her grave was, this guy. I'll never forget that. But anyway, I never saw him for years and years, right? And a couple of years ago, my cousin ran into him, right? And he was telling me, oh, I ran into old Bruce. And I said, hell, he must be about 95 now. I thought he would have died years ago. And he said, yeah, and he still chain smokes. Nothing's changed. So imagine that. That guy is what you call tough as nails. No one would survive what he survived. You know, just tough as nails. I could not believe how tough he was. Yeah. Funny that. Just a skinny, little, lanky guy.